Hi there, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our webinar. My name is Denise, and I am in marketing at CME Away. We welcome Vinette DiGregorio from Collette, and we also welcome Maren Chivers. She's an Alaska tour manager with Collette, so it's pretty exciting that she's on with us because she is an expert at exactly what we're doing. During the webinar, they're going to be bringing Alaska's Northern Lights tour to life. The webinar is being recorded, so we have cameras off and we have microphones off as well. There is a Q&A box available, so for all the attendees, we encourage you to ask any questions, and we'll certainly get to those. We are excited for your participation, and please join me in welcoming. We have Maren here to start our presentation.
Hello, everyone. How are you? So I actually just returned from the last frontier, and I spent the last 5 weeks up in Alaska enjoying this trip. So this is my third year in a row running these tours. I have worked with the office to help plan this trip, and I work very closely with Vinette and Kata in our offices to help prepare this trip for our tour managers. We have a small team that run the tours in the month of March. So it's a lot of fun. I'm excited. And of course, since I just got back, I am still riding the pretty big high of Alaska in the wintertime, which in some instances is just like stepping into a snow globe. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about our small group brand. So if you've traveled with Collette before, or if this is new to you, we have a couple of different styles of tours. We have our classic tour, which happens in the summertime, which is, like your 44 passenger tour. And this particular tour is an explorations, which means limited groups. So you're never going to have more than 24 people on this bus, and it means a little bit more adventure and activity. So we definitely want you to be able-bodied and feel comfortable walking in snowpack and or icy conditions. We have full days for you, and we even have a couple of full nights for you. So it's definitely an adventure tour, not an easy. Some of our summer tours might be a little bit more slower paced or relaxed. So this tour is jump right in and get going and enjoy the adventure. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit, I think I can navigate that, Denise. All right, yeah. All right, just one moment. Let me check with Vinette. Denise, do you see Vinette in the waiting room? She says she's waiting in the waiting room.
I don't see her in the waiting room.
Okay. Okay, she's trying to get in. I'm not sure where the waiting room is. Okay, so this particular tour, we stay at 3 destinations within Alaska. So we stay in Anchorage and Talkeetna and Fairbanks. This tour can be offered in a north direction or a south direction. So you could start in Anchorage or you could start in Fairbanks and then end in the opposite with the one night in Talkeetna in the middle of the tour. So we do offer it in both directions. And what we're going to show you is a northbound tour. So what I'm going to show you next is sunrise from Anchorage. So this is a photo of the Chugach Mountains. This is sunrise. And one of the great things that we have in Alaska in March is 7 minutes of daylight every day. So we're getting farther and farther away from the winter solstice, which happens in December, and we're getting closer to June. So in March, one of the things we have are really nice long sunrises and nice long sunsets. And as you can see here, this is a photo that I took from the hotel. So you're looking over the downtown area of Anchorage. Lots of restaurants to walk to. Some of my favorite restaurants are within 2 to 5 blocks of the Hilton Hotel, which is where we stay in Anchorage. It is a centrally located hotel. So typically on explorations tours, we like to stay with hotels that are unique and charming and have a good location. Sometimes it's one or the other. With the Hilton, it is centrally located in downtown, close to lots of restaurants, and as you can see, nice views of the Chugach Mountains. So what we do out of the Anchorage area is a half-day glacier cruise. So this photo here is one that I took off of our glacier cruise. We leave the town of Whittier, which is about a 2-hour drive from the town of Anchorage, and we have to go through a tunnel. So it's a very time-sensitive event. We have to go through a tunnel from Anchorage to Whittier, and then we get on this fantastic boat. And what you're looking at behind the water there is actually the small town of Whittier. There's less than 300 people that live there. So it is not very busy in the wintertime, but come summer, that's where a lot of the cruise ships go. So it's still an active port in the wintertime, but there isn't all of the crowd and marina activity like we see in the wintertime. So we have the place to ourselves, which really is wonderful. This trip is a weather dependent event, but not snow so much as wind. So one of the things that we keep an eye on is to make sure that we have nice, calm seas and we can go out for the day. Some of the things we might be able to see on this trip, we do see glaciers, so that's not a problem. We get nice and close to 2 separate tide water glaciers, so they come right down to the water, and the boat gets fairly close. Sometimes we can get within several hundred yards or maybe a half a mile, depending on the iceberg field. So one of the other things that you might notice in this photo are the icebergs. Being winter, we do have quite a few of the icebergs still kind of calving off of the glaciers, and so that will be something that the captain determines. We also have the chance, and I can't ever guarantee this, but the chance to see wildlife. Sometimes we see these sea lions like you see here. Sometimes we see harbor seals, and sometimes we see lots of otters. So after we finish our day there, we head into Anchorage and we have dinner at a local restaurant, and that is one of our included meals. So that is a great full day, and we hit the ground running. Like I said, it is an adventure tour. The next stop is actually a little bit north of Anchorage, and it's in a little tiny town called Palmer. So Palmer, Alaska is about an hour and 20 minutes north of Anchorage, and we start making our way north, and we stop here at the musk ox farm. So as you can see, these are a couple of the musk ox at the farm. We do have an educational portion where we stay inside and we work with the staff to learn about the animals and their behavior and some of their personality quirks, as many of the animals have been born and raised at the muskox farm. The staff there has gotten to know them since they were just little tiny babies, and so they have personalities just like a dog or a goat. And as we think about the musk ox, their closest living relative today is actually the goat, not an ox. And so when folks started to move into Alaska, they thought that they looked very similar to an ox or maybe a water buffalo, and so they got the name muskox. However, they're not related to the oxen at all. One of the things you'll find if they get a little bit playful, just like a goat does, they do this little like hop and jump around, and they like to kick a big ball. So they have an interactive experience where we all walk out into the paddocks, and this is why we recommend really good shoes and ice cleats. Not only in Anchorage, but as we're going throughout the entire itinerary, we are walking outside, so the appropriate footwear is crucial. And as you can see, just looking at the path here, there is a bit of snow and a bit of ice, so we always want to make sure to stress safety, but we have a really good time getting to know these guys. And then you would have the opportunity to feel one of the most special aspects of the animal, which is their under layer. So similar to like a llama or a sheep, they have a base layer of fur that keeps them warm out on the Arctic tundra. And they call that kiviot. And kiviot is precious. They don't shear these animals. They actually have to hand comb that kiviot out from the base layer. And so that is a very tedious and manual labor intensive job. And then once they hand comb that kiviot layer out from the undercoat, they can use that to make scarves and hats and gloves. And so one of the things that we find is a lot of Alaskans like to wear kiviot because of its natural defense to the cold, but the prices are very precious due to all of that intense hand labor. So that is one of my favorite stops. And we're going to continue north to the small town of Talkeetna. So in the small town of Talkeetna, we stay at the Talkeetna Alaska Lodge. Now, this is a small property on a nice little hill. And if you have the right weather, like in this photo that I took, you might see North America's tallest mountain. This is Denali, which is part of the Alaska range. So as you can see from my photo here, we had a nice bluebird day, gorgeous skies, and Denali was putting on quite the show for us. That doesn't happen every day due to the size of the mountain. She is 20,310 feet tall, so that is quite a large system, and she's surrounded by quite a few of the mountains from the Alaska range that are almost as tall as her. So, 17, 18, 19,000 foot mountains are her foothills, and they create their own weather system. So it is quite normal to see cloud cover on these mountains. So if you are lucky enough to get a glimpse of this beauty, it's one of the reasons why we stay at this property, and we just kind of keep our eyes focused in that direction for the clouds to part and for this gorgeous beauty to come through. Then in the Talkeetna area, we do offer a pre-sold option that would be in addition to your package price. So that would be something that you could book in advance of the trip. If you wanted to take a flight scene tour in a fixed wing plane, that is something you have the choice to think about. And then this is the lobby of the lodge. It is gorgeous. We've got this nice big fireplace and sofas all around. You can sit around the sofa, sit by the fire. Just behind the fireplace, there are nice big floor to ceiling windows so that we can keep an eye out for that mountain if she decides to put on a show for us. And it really is the epitome of a winter Alaskan lodge. The accommodations are simple and clean, but we gather together in the lobby area, maybe have a coffee or a hot chocolate and enjoy the views. From Talkeetna, we board the Alaska Railroad. So the Alaska Railroad is the only state operated train left in the United States. So it is state owned and operated, and they run the train in the wintertime on a very limited schedule. So we don't have the option to take the train every single day. So our itineraries are built around the train schedule. So we build the train schedule day, and then we sort of build the days in Fairbanks and Anchorage around the train schedule. So that way we get to travel through the interior of Alaska, going through the Alaska Range, going through the Arctic tundra, going up through the Tanana Hills. We do have approximately 8 hours on this train. We do include one meal. We are on the train long enough for 2 meals, so one of those is an included meal, and one of those you would be able to purchase at your own leisure. But as you can see, it is literally going through some of the most pristine, gorgeous territory in all of Alaska. They make a quick stop for folks to stretch their legs about halfway through, so folks can step off for about 5 or 10 minutes. This is all weather dependent as well, but usually we get about 5 or 10 minutes where we can stretch our legs, where we can get some fresh air. And as you can see, winter conditions. And that's another great picture of the train. So as you can see, we do have those windows on the side of the train. The winter train does not have the glass dome ceilings for safety purposes. They do not operate glass dome trains in the wintertime. So we'll have cars similar to this on our train consist. And here's another gorgeous mountain that we pass along the Alaska Range. So this is one of the tiny little foothills, only about 5,000, 5,200 feet tall here. Panorama Mountain is right along the outskirts of the Denali National Park. And as you can see, we've got a little bit of frozen water just from one of the rivers that is actually, looks like the Jack River, that we'll be passing by. So as we are making our way from Talkeetna north, we skirt around the edge of Denali National Park, and sometimes we have views of Denali the mountain, or sometimes we have views of some of the closer mountains. So as you can see in this photo, there are no blue skies. We had a cloudy day this day, so we didn't have views of Denali. We had views of some of the smaller mountains that were closer to us on the train. But all of the rivers and lakes and ponds are frozen, so it really is that winter wonderland that you've been dreaming of. As we continue north, we get to the town of Fairbanks. So the town of Fairbanks is the second largest in the state of Alaska. Anchorage is the first largest. Anchorage is getting close to 300,000 people now, so pretty big for Alaska standards. And Fairbanks is the second city, is only 32,000 people. So there's quite a jump from number 1 to number 2. And as you can see, as we're coming into town here, this is right along the top of the hillside where the train tracks come in to Fairbanks. And in the far distance, you're looking at the Alaska Range, that mountain which we've left behind down by Denali. So that's about 150 miles south of us now. But that silhouette is gorgeous down there to the south of town. And then we do have another choice on tour as an optional. It's the Arctic Circle flight. So this is a fantastic opportunity for you to put your feet on the ground above the Arctic Circle. Now, it is a full day event. It is fantastic because you are going to fly in one of these planes. So if you're looking at this little red and white de Havilland or Cessna, can't quite tell, sorry. You will fly from Fairbanks up to the small town of Coldfoot. Coldfoot is about 80 miles north of the Arctic Circle, that dotted line, that invisible dotted line on the map. And so you'll fly up to Coldfoot, and you'll get out of this airplane and you'll walk over to this van. So if you're looking over here to just off of the wing, there is that 10-passenger van waiting for you. And so everyone from the plane gets into one of these vans, and they take you for a little bit of a city tour in the large town of Coldfoot, population 25. So not really a big metropolis. The town of Coldfoot was designed and built for the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, and so it still serves as a workers' layover and truck stop for many of the oil workers, and it does serve as one of the stations on the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. So you'll get to view the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. You'll get to view how people live in such a remote and cold place. And then you'll also have the opportunity to purchase lunch if you so desire. So this is usually an afternoon activity from about 12 p.m. until 5 p.m. Occasionally, we do have to do it in the morning based on the pilot's schedule. So your individual situation could be morning or afternoon by the time we get around to next year. But it is a fantastic tour. One of the things that I like to emphasize is that this Arctic tour is not necessarily for scenery. You might have fantastic scenery flying over the Arctic tundra, flying over the Yukon River, and you might also have a cloudy day. If it's cloudy, but the weather conditions are still calm and it's safe to fly, they're going to fly, because the point of this trip is to get you into the Arctic Circle, not necessarily to take you on a pretty little flight to go look at mountains, if that makes sense. So this is a bucket list item for a lot of people to get up into the Arctic Circle. All right, one of my favorite museums is the Fountainhead Antique Auto Museum. So we spend about an hour, hour and a half at this museum, which is phenomenal. The oldest vehicle that they have in there is from the 1898. And if you're thinking back to that year in Alaska, we didn't have roads really yet then. So it really was an accomplishment to get vehicles up there. And one of the things that I like about this museum is not only do they have these amazingly restored vehicles, but they pair it with these historic pictures. So if you look behind that yellow vehicle there, that picture behind it is of the pioneers moving into Alaska. So you have pictures all throughout the museum of settlers moving in, of some of the settlers interacting with the First Nations and enjoying some of the automotive advancements and progressions throughout the first half of the 1900s. And so their youngest car is 1942. So it really is a fantastic antique museum. And then, just so you don't think that it's all about cars, if you look here, we do have some fashion on display. So you can see a couple of these dresses to the left and back to the right. So all throughout the museum, you are going to have a multifaceted interaction. You're going to see the vehicles, you're going to see the photos, and you're going to see some of the fashion from the time paired with the vehicles of that era. And it really is curated quite well. And it's one of my biggest surprise. People always come to me and say, oh, I don't know about antique cars. I'm like, just give it a try, please. And as we're walking out, everyone's going, oh my gosh, that was the best museum I've ever seen. So it really is a fantastic, well curated museum. I love everyone's reaction as we're leaving here. And now we're getting into our dog mushing and trail breaker kennel experience. So one of the things that you are going to get to do is ride in a dog sled with a professional musher. So the musher will have the dog team and the sled all set up. They will drive, you will ride. And when we finish with the mushing experience, and I'm actually just going to jump ahead. This is what the mushing experience looks like. So as you can see, you've got your dog team there, you've got your sled. So you definitely want to wear your winter gear. They will have blankets provided to kind of cover your legs. And then I think we've got one more. Yeah. So as you can see here, folks are sitting 2 people to a sled. And as you can see, it is a little bit cozy. So you probably want to know the person you're sitting with. But as you can see here, we do have a professional musher driving the sled. So this is not us driving, we are the riders. So 2 to a sled. And then as we go back here, you can see the dog team goes out with you. And you're on the sled about, I would say it's about 10 or 15 minutes. It's approximately 1.5 miles to 2 miles out into the boreal forest. Now, let me jump back here to the inside experience. So once we finished outside with the dogs, we all head inside to the family home. So what you're looking at right here is the family home of Tekla Munson Butcher, who's on the left. So this young lady here on the left with the yellow hat is the daughter of Susan Butcher and Dave Munson. And if we look over here to the picture on the right, this gentleman standing here is Dave Munson. So Dave Munson is a legend in Alaskan and Yukon dog mushing over the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. And he married one of the most legendary women dog mushers of all time, Susan Butcher. So Susan Butcher really changed the face of dog mushing in Alaska. She really helped everyone to realize that the dogs weren't necessarily just a working dog, that they could be bonded with and trained and bred to work and to race and to interact with the families. And so she really did change the entire face of dog culture in Alaska. And so he married her in 1980, and they were a very competitive dog mushing family throughout the 80s and 90s. In fact, Susan Butcher won the Iditarod 4 times. She was the second woman to ever win the Iditarod race, which is a 1,000-mile dog race that goes through the interior of Alaska. The same year that she won, well, excuse me, she won 4 times. So one of the years that she won, Dave won the Yukon Quest. The Yukon Quest is another 1,000-mile dog race that goes from the interior of Alaska over into the Yukon Territory down to Whitehorse, so over into Canada. So we maybe could have a little rivalry there, right? So after many years of successful competitive dog racing, they decided to build this gorgeous family home and have their children. And so Tekla here, in the yellow hat on the left, was born, and she is just the spitting image of her mother, acts just like her father, and she has taken over the family business now. So she is growing up or has grown up around dogs and is really taking on the family business. Unfortunately, Susan passed away in 2006 from leukemia. And so it's just, so Dave raised the girls by himself after Susan passed, and Tekla and her sister and her dad all live here together still in the family home. And that is where we have our dinner. They eat with us. They sit down in their family kitchen with us and answer questions about what they need to wear out on the Iditarod Trail. So the gear that you're seeing here, these big coats and big boots and all of the gear, is what they would need to wear out on the trail when they are alone for 5 days or 10 days or 15 days out in the interior, out in the bush with the dog teams. And so they have some really fantastic gear here and examples of what they need to wear. And so Tekla and Dave share that with us. All right. Hop back over. Now, of course, this is probably one of the biggest reasons everyone takes this trip, and I would say maybe one of my biggest worries, because weather is going to dictate what we see. So on a really good night with clear skies, we're going to start to see Lady Aurora come out for us, usually by about 9 or 10 p.m. We have enough darkness from the sunset to start to get a glimpse. So we go out about a half an hour outside of Fairbanks. It's about 25 minutes to an area that's a little bit quieter, a little bit darker, to have our aurora viewing. We usually go out there about 10 p.m. And one of the things I like in this photo, so this is a photo that I took with my phone. And I like to point this out for a few reasons. Not only am I getting a fairly decent shot with just, and I have an Android phone, I'm getting a pretty decent shot of the aurora with my phone, but I also have a little bit of stars. You can see some of the stars coming through, and we have a full moon. So one of the things that I get asked a lot is light pollution and the full moon. And this picture shows you it's okay. You know, if we have a full moon and the full moon is bright like that, you still could see the aurora. Now, yes, it does change the pictures that you're going to get. It might, as you can sort of see to the right, wash out the pictures a little bit, but it really isn't impacting our visibility at all. And we're getting decent photos out of it. These are some more pictures that I took with just my little phone here. And the two on the left, I would say, are more common. So the sort of faint or dull green is the most commonly seen with our eyes. And then it starts to get a little bit more vibrant green. And then if you are extremely lucky, on the right, you might get a little bit more color and a little bit more vertical rise on those aurora. That is not the norm. Most nights we're seeing something a bit more like these first two on the left, a little bit of green, a little bit of wavy curtaining is what we call it. But then here on the right, on a really good clear night, and to be honest, it does need to be cold. The warmer temperatures do tend to keep a bit of condensation in the air and distort the visibility just a little bit. So the colder we have and the darker we have, and then of course no clouds, we have some chances of getting some of the colors. Now, one of the things that people are always really surprised about is that our eyes don't see the colors the way that a camera does. So our cameras on our phones are perfectly equipped to pick up the northern lights. It's very easy. If you're a good photographer and you have a camera and you have the settings and you wanted to do a little bit more in-depth photography, bring your cameras along, but it isn't necessary. One of the things that you can see right here, I've taken these with my phone. It does a fine enough job. We do have a professional photographer at this location that will take professional photographs with his camera and give them to us as part of our experience. So you can rest assured, if you don't have a professional camera, don't go out and spend a bunch of money. If you already have it and you want to bring it, then that's a different story. I would encourage that. But don't make, exceptions if that's not your hobby. But we don't necessarily see the colors. Like you can see here, we have those reds and yellows coming up in my picture on the right. That is not visible to the naked eye. And that's just because of the way humans are developed. As doctors, you probably know, our eyes are one of the first things to go, and our eyes are not designed like a digital resolution camera. So we sometimes have to squint, and then what I do is a camera check. I'll take a picture of the sky with my camera, and then I'll see if the color coming up in my picture is green or different than what my eyes are seeing. And then as my eyes adjust, I sort of keep an eye on that spot where I took a picture, and then I watch that color. It sort of starts out as a little bit white or gray, and then it starts to become green, and then more vibrant green. And it's a little bit of a progression. So you just sort of have to keep your eyes on the spot. All right, and then our last day in Fairbanks, we do go to the Museum of the North, which is a fantastic museum at the University of Alaska. This is one of their sculptures inside there, our bear. Great museum. And yeah, so that sort of wraps up. All right, so I'm gonna check out some of the questions. Is there a reason a visit to Denali National Park is not included? Yes, the reason is it's not open. So in the winter time, Denali National Park is closed at the gate. So the only way for any person to get in there is to drive to the gate and then strap on some skis or snowshoes and go in there under human power. That being said, we're on the train from Talkeetna to Fairbanks. And so we bypass the national park border, but there is no ability to stop to go in because those roads are not plowed, and there would be no way for us to get into the national park without all of us knowing how to ski and or snowshoe. Unfortunately, that's just not something that is feasible on this particular itinerary. All right, I am ready for questions.
I think if anybody raises their hands, we can probably take any questions that anyone has, if anyone has questions. That was a really good one, though, about Denali, because I was kind of wondering the same thing.
Yeah, you're just going to have to come back with us in summer.
There you go. Good answer. All right. I'm not sure that we have any questions, but I do see that there's a couple more slides with the testimonials. So I'm just going to pull
Yes,
these
right.
up.
Oh, that's right. All right. Yep. So since we just finished the season, we have some fresh guest comment. And so it looks like the variety of places that we had gone and seen in such a short amount of time, they loved every minute. The dog mushing was a great experience, and having to meet the family of Susan Butcher, sharing a meal in their home felt very special. They really enjoyed the cruise on Lazy Otter to see the glaciers. It looks like, oh, they even got to touch a bit of glacier. Oh, that's fantastic. So sometimes,
Mirren, you can't skip over the part where the staff was excellent and made it fun. Mirren, that's you.
Well, it might have been me or one of my colleagues. We have a great team in Alaska. We have a really great team. My friends and I have all been working in Alaska for a minimum of 10 years. Actually, I'm sort of the baby with only 10 years experience in Alaska. My colleagues had 10 years, 20 years, and 35 years. So we have a really well-experienced team up there, and we're just, we love Alaska. We just want to share it with everyone and get everyone as excited as we are. Let's see, we've got another one. All right, the Northern Lights were vivid on one of the nights we were there. We were waiting, the waiting area to see them was warm and comfortable. I love that you all took care of everything. It was my very first tour. I was very impressed. And that is one of, the other advantages to group travel. You do have a tour manager that's going to be attending to pretty much everything and telling you what to do every step of the way. We're going to handle all of your hotel reservations. We're going to handle all of the included restaurants and all of the included activities. I am essentially going to tell you what to do every minute of every day. When we have free time, I'm going to give you instructions that you can choose, so if you want something a little bit more adventurous or something maybe a little bit less adventurous, that can kind of be suited to your preference. But one of the things I would recommend is when you get your email from your tour manager, you should get that about 2 weeks prior to the trip, and there'll be a list of free time suggestions. And I would highly recommend really going over that free time suggestion list that we send to you and asking questions and making those reservations in advance. Things like snow machining can book out in advance. If you want to go out to the reindeer farm in Fairbanks, that's something you do need to organize on your own. So these are just ideas of free time suggestions, but definitely work with your tour manager to make sure that if you want to go somewhere, you understand what you need to do in that free time, because you might need to use an Uber or a taxi for some of those free time, depending on what you want to do. So since this tour moves a lot, I'm guessing packing in a smaller suitcase, even a duffel bag, makes the most sense. Honestly, pack a regular suitcase. Every one of my guests packs a regular suitcase. You are not carrying your suitcase. So once you get into the first hotel, we're going to take care of everything for you. So pack a normal suitcase. Make sure you have lots of layers. Make sure you have lots of base layers for wearing underneath your snow gear. If you don't have winter clothes, there is an option to rent winter clothes. You can pay for that in Fairbanks and or Anchorage. And generally speaking, the most important thing to pack is a lot of socks. So I go through probably 2 pairs of socks a day. Maybe you experience this in your hometown with the colder temperatures and the big snow boots. Things can tend to get a little, you just need a fresh pair about halfway through the day. So I would say make sure you have plenty of socks. Next question here is, can the Northern Lights be seen from the hotel in Fairbanks? Yes. Yes, they can. The medical course is a full day at Anchorage. Are we missing any activities that day? I don't actually have any information about your medical course. I know that that is something that you are working on as a custom plan for that day, and that is something that I am not privy to. I may or may not be your tour manager. That I am an Alaskan expert, but I don't have my schedule for next year. So that is something you will probably need to follow up with someone else.
Hey, Maren, actually, maybe I might be able to help on that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so Mr. Kleinman, so when we actually book our CME hours, we always strive to make sure that there is plenty of time. There's going to be a lot of time on your own to, do some sightseeing and to enjoy some various things. But when we plan the CME hours, we always make sure that we're aware of what's happening and we try to make sure that it's best planned so you're going to be able to enjoy the trip to its fullest. Yeah, and we have for this tour, actually, we have a full day at the beginning. It's a separate day just to get in those extra hours. So we don't want to interfere in all the fun and all the amazing sightseeing we're going to be doing.
All right, let's see. Next slide. This one is about me. Our tour leader was amazing, so knowledgeable, made the trip interesting. She took very good care of us, and so did Todd, our driver. We enjoyed every minute of the trip. And there we go. Yeah.
I think that's it for all the questions that we have here. Maren, you have been absolutely amazing taking us through this tour. We are so excited here to be offering it. We're so excited to be partnering with Collette. It looks absolutely incredible. February can't come soon enough. I'm a summer person and I'm excited for February.
Yeah, it's a wonderful trip. It is my favorite trip that I get to do. One of the things that I like about it is, the small group environment. So that's nice. You get to interact with everyone one-on-one a lot more. Also, you're doing the best of the best in Alaska. And the only caveat I will put out there, and obviously living in, in the north, you probably deal with this. The weather is the only big X factor. So we just have to work with the weather and be prepared for it. That's
Maren, I think, yeah, I was going to say, I think we have another question here.
Is it worth booking a local Northern Light scene tour in Fairbanks? No, it is not. We take you out 2 nights in Fairbanks to our venue, and the other night that you're in Fairbanks, we're at the hotel. So it is not worth booking another one with another company. The majority of your time in Fairbanks is going to be, when it's nighttime, I mean, not during the day, is going to already be planned for you.
We also have another question in the chat, and the question is the Talkeetna Hotel. It used to be owned by Princess Mount McKinley Hotel. Is that what it was?
No, that is a separate property. So okay. The Mount McKinley Hotel that is owned by Princess still exists. It's still owned by Princess. It's about 45 minutes to an hour away from the town of Talkeetna. That is a summer-only hotel. They don't open in the winter at all. Where we stay, the Talkeetna Alaska Lodge, is approximately 5 minutes from the train station in the town of Talkeetna, and it is owned and operated by a company called Pursuit Collection. They have quite a few in Banff as well. So it's also a Montana-based company, and they have quite a few properties in Montana, Canada, and Alaska.
I think that might be it for questions. I'm just looking, nothing else has popped in. Maren, sure. Thank you so much for your time. Your knowledge is absolutely amazing. And we appreciate you so much taking the time to sit with us tonight, to go through it and just give us a more in-depth picture as to what the tour looks like. And we just thank you so much for joining us.